Update. Am I the a-hole for insulting my father's girlfriend and telling her to get out of our lives? Original post. My mother was my world. I remember reading books, watching documentaries, and going on road trips with her. She baked my sisters and I cookies whenever we were sick, and her and Dad would take us hiking every other week. I still miss her even now. When I was 11 years old, she passed away from a driving accident. It was the hardest year in my life, and it hasn't gotten easier. 2 years after she passed, my father started dating a woman named Nicole, and 4 years later, they're getting married. Nicole is younger than my father. After dating Nicole, I saw my father come back into his shell, but it turned into something else. Nicole brought adventure back into his life, but they often went on elaborate trips and frequent night outs. During all of this, I felt neglected. My father slowly stopped taking my sisters and I on our weekly hikes. He started speaking less and less over calls, and even once forgot my mother's birthday. After she came into our lives, I started losing my father. He just wasn't there anymore. One time, when my sister and I were home alone, she fell down the stairs and got a huge cut on her forehead. It was clear she needed stitches, so I called my father immediately. Nicole answered the phone and I told her to give the phone to my father. She refused, saying he was busy, and before I could get another word in, she disconnected a call. I embarrassingly had to ask the neighbor to bring us to urgent care, where my dad later met us. This woman at one point removed my mother's picture from the fire mantle to put up a picture of her and my dad from their trip to Washington. The thing that tipped me over was when she made my father forget about my mother's birthday. Every year, my sister and I go with our father to visit my mother on her birthday. It was an annual tradition even before Nicole entered our lives. Nicole and my father went on a trip to Florida and were supposed to be back 3 days before my mother's birthday. But because this woman is motion sick, my father decided to break the drive back into small intervals to make it easier on her. Because of this, he ended up missing our annual trip. He didn't even call us. Not even a week later, my father has the nerve to tell us about an exciting surprise. Nicole is pregnant. I get angry and tell my father, "You knock her up when you can't even be here for us?" I then look at Nicole and tell her she is a disgusting piece of trash and to get out of our lives. My father gets angry and yells at me to go up in my room. Later, my grandpa unexpectedly came over to pick me up. My father didn't text me anything. Even as I left, he wouldn't even look at me. It's been 2 days and I'm still at my grandparents' home. I feel ashamed for saying what I said, yet I don't feel overwhelming regret. Am I the a-hole? Edit. When I saw how deep the cut was, I immediately called my dad. He was staying over at Nicole's place at a time. When I called, Nicole picked up. She said, "Hello?" I said, "Sister's bleeding. Can you pass the phone to Dad?" She said, "Your dad is busy. I can't." And immediately afterwards, she disconnected the phone. I then left to go to get my neighbor. Now for the top comments before reading the updates. Not the a-hole. Nicole showed her colors when your sister was injured and she wouldn't let you talk to your dad. And he has showed his colors too, in many different ways. I hope your grandparents can continue to be there for you. You didn't say your age, but I hope you can be free of all this soon. That is, be 18. You were harsh and rude, but I can't fault you given what you've shared. I appreciate it. I'm 17 and I've spoken to school counselors too. No one is willing to help me. I've tried talking with my dad about how I feel way before my outburst, but it always ends with, "It happened years ago. It's time to move on." I don't even know what that means. My sister can't get help either, so I'm trying to peacefully exist for her. How old is your sister? You're old enough for almost to get away from this awful treatment, but I guess you don't want to leave your sister. I don't know what else to say that would be really useful, but I truly hope you get out before you're expected to take care of Nicole's child for free. My sister is 13. She's very sensitive and quiet, so it's hard for her to reach out to people on her own. She's recently been struggling with bullying at school and it's been really hard for her to deal with. I can never imagine leaving her behind. Not the a-hole. I'm so sorry, OP. I don't even know where to start. You are categorically not the a-hole. Nicole is a huge one, but your dad wins by a mile. You and your sister should be his top priority, not the afterthought he's currently treating you as. What happened at the hospital? Did you and your sister tell the nurse that you were home alone and that your father wouldn't come to the phone? My neighbor came with us inside the urgent care, but while driving us there, it called my dad and it picked up. My dad said he'll be there in 15 to 20 minutes, which he was. I'm scared of saying anything that could get him in trouble, so I made something up like she got hurt while playing outside. In the past, I mentioned something to a school counselor and a police officer visited our home. My dad got pretty angry, so I tried to avoid these situations. Hopefully this gives some context. What did your father say when he found out Nicole wouldn't let you talk to him? In an emergency, he still chose Nicole over his children. I'm sorry. I don't know if anything was said between them, but when my dad came to urgent care, he didn't seem worried and didn't walk in with a sense of urgency. On the phone, he told my neighbor he would be there in 15 to 20 minutes. As for the phone call with Nicole, I mentioned that something happened to my sister and I needed to talk to him, but she refused and quickly disconnected. Edit: I've decided to contact my maternal grandpa tomorrow. I'll let you know how it goes. Now for the first update. I've called my maternal grandpa when everyone was still sleeping. It ended up being a 2-hour call. I basically mentioned to him everything I've said here and how I want to live with him if possible. He said that as much as he wants me to go get out of there, that he can't do much without my father's approval. I hinted a legal approach, but he said he wouldn't be able to see us if it got that far. My grandpa also shared some new info regarding my dad. According to him, when I was 14 and my sister was 10, my dad dropped us over at my grandma's farm since he and Nicole were flying out. A day after they returned, my grandpa dropped us back home. We were still sleeping in Grandpa's car when this situation happened. But when my grandpa knocked on the door, my dad answered the door drunk out of his mind. From what little he could see, my grandpa saw that house was a mess. He told my dad that he would bring us back the following day once my dad was in his right mind. We left back to Grandpa's place. Then, my grandpa got a call from my dad the next morning, threatening him with the police if he didn't bring us back immediately. My grandpa mentioned that he would speak with my paternal grandparents to see if something could be done about our situation. Second update. Hi everyone, it's been a while. I really want to thank all of you for your perspectives and advice. Just wanted to give an update. Regarding Thanksgiving dinner, when my dad and Nicole arrived, I asked if I could speak with them both. My dad said he didn't want to talk and went into the living room. Nicole still remained by the front door, so I apologized for insulting her. She replied that she needed to leave and went to the living room. Overall, she still seemed rightfully angry with me. Dinner was awkward because my grandma would try to get my dad and I to talk, but he wouldn't really bother. After dinner, I pulled him aside and apologized again. He ignored me and went straight to Nicole. I still wasn't sure if I was heading back with him or not, so I packed everything just in case. When he was getting ready to leave, I asked him if I could come back home. He said Nicole wasn't comfortable having me home, even though it had been a few days since the incident. I spent the entire night crying on the phone with my sister. Therapy and living situation. After having my call with my maternal grandpa, he called my paternal grandparents a couple days later to discuss my situation. I overheard a call between them. My maternal grandpa expressed he was concerned about me, especially my mental state, and asked my paternal grandparents if they were willing to talk to my dad about putting me in therapy. My grandparents said they'd be willing to take me to their church's mental support group or talk with their faith leader who specializes in grief counseling. My grandpa pushed back on the idea and mentioned the need for more professional help, but they were not receptive to the idea. All three of them also had a heated conversation about my living arrangement. My grandpa said it was ridiculous for a grown man to throw out their daughter, and it was shameful that my paternal grandparents are not hard-pressed in helping me get back home. That's all I heard regarding the conversation. Now, my paternal grandma started taking me to weekly private sessions with a faith leader. I'm not entirely happy with the arrangement, but it has helped me start to process my grief in a healthier way. Also, I'm still living with my grandparents. I apologized over and over through text to my dad and through my grandparents, but he has not responded. My maternal grandpa has called my dad many times, but my dad blocked him. I am contemplating telling my school counselor next semester the details regarding my dad and not omitting anything to protect him. I also wasn't invited to my dad and Nicole's Christmas dinner, which hurt, but I'm starting to not care to have a relationship with my dad. I don't know if my feelings will change. In a twisted way, it was good he didn't let me go back home with him. The space has helped me focus on myself. I'm so sorry that you have to deal with this. I'm in tears while typing this. You need to expose him completely. He is able to get away with everything because people still believe he is a good father when he is a terrible one. Also, I would send him one final text message and tell him that he should disregard all previous apologies as he didn't mean them, and you are happy for him to sign away his rights to your grandpa. Then go full scorched earth and destroy him. He should be ashamed of himself. I've thought about this long and hard to the point it had mentally consumed me. I imagined every revenge and final say moments, but one thing I've recognized in therapy is how much my resentment and anger has been holding me back from moving on. I'm now just trying to emotionally detach from them. I have every intention to involve the school counselor for my sister. Is your sister still being neglected? I'm worried she's being left alone like you guys were before. Stop apologizing. You did nothing wrong. Your father is a selfish man who is only thinking with his nether region, unfortunately. One day he may realize, one day he may not. But you and hopefully your sister will be long gone and leave him behind in the dust, because that's where he belongs. The father you knew died the moment he started dating Nicole. Mourn your father in grief counseling. When you're allowed to get a legitimate counselor, process everything. Tell the school counselor everything. Expose both of them. We're all supporting you. She definitely is. My dad has only gone on one major trip between Thanksgiving and now, and during that time she stayed over. She also stays over on weekends too. I just hope he's better with the baby than he was with us. Thank you for your support. I'm so sorry your dad is such a weak person, and that your grandparents are enabling him and refusing you the help that you deserve. You'll soon be 18. Then you can move in with your maternal grandfather and get some real therapy to help you unpack the abandonment and abuse you've suffered. Get yourself stable and get an education so you can be there for your sister when she needs rescuing. I have a feeling that she will be used as a constant babysitter. I think you should tell the school counselor everything. But if you can wait for your 18th birthday to do that, you should. Don't tell your grandparents or the faith leader that you're planning to report him or that you're planning to leave. Best of luck, Opie. I hope things get better for you soon. Thank you. I'm looking forward to college and putting this behind me in time. I'm trying to convince my grandparents to allow my sister to live with them full-time, so she has some semblance of peace. Last story. Am I the a-hole for being furious with my father and refusing to go to his wedding? I, 27 male, have 2 siblings, 24 female and 20 male. We used to belong to a family of 5, but sadly our mother passed away from cancer earlier this year. It has been tough for all of us, but it has been especially hard on my younger brother who is currently in college. He failed 2 semesters in a row this year. Due to difficulty coping with the situation, it is on the verge of being suspended. Only 2.5 months after my mother's death, my father informed my sister and I that he had already found a new girlfriend and was in a serious relationship. My sister and I were shocked and disappointed. Finding a new partner after only 2.5 months seemed rushed and offensive. My sister and I explained to him that while we were willing to accept him moving on to someone else, we were, however, not interested in being involved with this new woman in any way. It was just too soon. We also made it very clear to him that he needed to hide the situation from our brother, who was struggling to pass his classes. This was his last chance, and if he were to fail the semester again due to difficulty coping with the situation, he would be suspended for a year. Our father claimed to understand our concerns and apologized for any added stress this put on us. He also claimed to fully agree about hiding the situation from my brother for now. I hoped at this point that the situation was under control. Sadly, it was only about to get much worse. Around a week before Thanksgiving, my brother was flying home from school for the holidays. At the school, they get around 10 days off before they have to fly back to take their final exams. School is on quarter system. My sister and I expected our dad to stay home to spend time with our brother. After all, this was the first major family holiday since our mother's passing, and we assumed our dad would want to make sure our brother was okay and ready for exams. We were mistaken. The morning after my brother arrived home, not only had our father decided to tell my brother everything about his new girlfriend, but he also just left the house to travel to a different state to spend holidays with her. Not only did he show blatant disregard for my brother's situation, but also showed no interest in spending the first major family holiday since his wife's passing with his kids. On Thanksgiving, he didn't even text or call me or my siblings to ask what we were doing. My siblings and I were furious with him over his behavior, and we had a huge fight. He basically tried to gaslight us, claimed that we were overreacting and that we didn't care about his life. He also acted very entitled, demanding we get on board with his new relationship. He then casually dropped the bombshell that he'd planned to marry this woman next year. Given his blatant disregard for my brother's well-being and overall distasteful behavior, I've decided I won't be going to his wedding. And I basically don't speak with him at all beyond replying yes or no. The rare times he does message me. Am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments. Firstly, your brother needs help, probably professional, to deal with, process, and learn to grieve while dealing the pressures of life. Maybe grief counseling for everyone isn't a bad call. Info, was it known to be terminal? How long was she given and how ill was she? Was your father her main carer? You probably aren't privy to the intimate details they discussed before her passing. She may have encouraged him to find someone. Pure speculation would be if he was already involved prior to her passing. Some people aren't capable of being alone. Everyone processes grief differently, judging or assuming anything isn't a good idea. Hiding things never works, no matter how well-intentioned. It always ends up worse. Not the a-hole. A gentle everyone sucks here. Your dad probably more so, and he's just focused on himself and doesn't seem to be considering others. I agree my brother needs therapy, and I have told him as much. It was known to be incurable, but the rate at which it would progress was unknown for a long time. It was only within the last 4 to 7 months that it was known that death would be somewhat quick. My dad participated in her care, but we hired a nurse and a family to live with her during the last 3 months when she began to need help with basic tasks. I imagine if she encouraged him to find someone, he would have told us that. Would have been a super easy way to make everyone feel better about it. We were not asking him to hide it from my brother permanently. He only had to wait at least 2 to 3 weeks until he passed the semester and got off academic probation. I don't think that's too much to ask. Your dad can and should move on, but the velocity is mind-boggling. Shows an utter disregard to the mental health of his child. Has he been this self-centered all of his life? Makes me wonder if he was cheating on your mom prior to her demise. My sympathy, Soapy. Cut the parasite out, keep him as far away as possible so that he cannot hurt you, and focus on your brother. You have lost both parents, not the a-hole. I'm 98% sure he was with his new woman while his wife was dying and a nurse was caring for her. It's gross. I'm chronically ill, and my husband stays home with me sometimes so I'm not lonely. He cooks for me, does chores, and drives me to doctor appointments if I'm not up to driving.